Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Reisberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Jenny Curtis, podcast producer, director, and actor. Please enjoy Jenny Curtis. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I am here with Jenny Curtis, podcast producer, director, actor, and extraordinary human. So much more I'm sure we'll hear about today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so happy for you to be here and to chat with us about all of the creative things you get up to, your experience of creativity. But before we get there, if you wouldn't mind just taking a couple minutes and letting our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. Like you said, I am a podcast producer. I'm a director. I'm an actor. I'm going to try to keep this into a couple minute nutshell like you just requested, but I've basically led a career that ranges everything I could possibly think of in the entertainment industry, in theater, film, television, digital. I've worked in animation. I've worked in casting. I do as much as I possibly can. And in the past couple of years, or 3 years, I don't know how long it's been at this point, but I landed in podcasting in the past few years. And I produced, directed, and am one of the voices in a audio drama called Solar. That is it's a scripted fiction podcast that is, we say it's a journey to the center of the solar system and an exploration of the vastness of the human spirit. So Nice. It is a real thriller, and also I say it's darkly poetic and deeply moving, and a show that I have put my entire heart and soul into. So I love that show. I also do a few more podcasts. I have a show called Hollywood Unscripted, where much like we're doing today, I chat with creatives, I chat with filmmakers and talent about what they do. Nice. I had a podcast called A Moment of Your Time in the pandemic, where people around the world would basically submit 5-minute pieces of their version of creative expression. So songs, poetry, stories, we had some scenes, we had people just, I don't want to say rambling, but we had people just kind of expressing their views on certain things. It was a really, really wonderful daily show that I think we released something like 350 episodes of. But yeah, I guess that in a nutshell means I'm a podcaster now.
Surprise! Here you are.
And yeah, I like to feed all sorts of creative aspects of myself. I'm also a member of an immersive theater company in L.A. called the Speakeasy Society. We do exciting work in unexpected places, and sometimes I sleep once in a while.
Important. All of it is important. Sleep may be the most important.
I think so. You would think I'd get more of it because of that, but
right.
Who knows?
I feel you on that so much, but I mean, so many amazing things. I love the immersive theater experience and podcasting and directing and producing, all of that. For our listeners, could you share a little bit about what a podcast producer does? Because I think people hear that phrase, not necessarily thrown around, but they hear it and someone's like, oh, you produce podcasts. What does that mean?
Yeah. If you have the answer out there, someone message me, because I'm not exactly sure how to define it. It's the same thing as, and same with film producing and all of that. Yeah. A producer is kind of a catch-all, it should be a more in a box type of job, but it turns out you just gotta do whatever it takes to get the thing done. So for me in my podcasting journey, that means, sourcing talent. It means doing, a lot of the time I do the editing myself.
Yeah.
It means for certain of our shows, getting contracts signed. It means casting. It means promoting, marketing, like everything
you
could
name it, you
possibly
do
think
it.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, that's the word I've now said like 4 times, so I'm going to try to not say that again.
Good.
But it basically is, you do whatever it takes to get the project done. And if it's producing for someone else, it's, you do whatever it takes to serve the person whose show you're producing. And if you're producing for yourself, as I do a lot, you just cry a lot is basically the story.
Fair assessment. Lots of tears. Hopefully there's also lots of laughter in the tears.
Yes.
Yeah.
Laugh crying is my favorite thing.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for sharing that piece or clarifying that piece for our listeners. Well, when you think about creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
That's a very interesting question. And I think it's really easy for, at the surface level, people think creativity and it's some kind of art. It's music, dance, acting, performing. Those were all performing, but fine art, whatever it is. But I think it boils down to, anybody can be creative in whatever endeavor you're doing. It's I think a way of looking at the world. It's a desire to explore. It is being curious. I think creativity comes down to being really curious and having an imagination and wanting to play. And so
I love it. I love it. Curiosity, play, imagination, my favorite things. When you think about curiosity, imagination, and play, is this something that was really cultivated in your life? Or do you feel like as you got into adulthood, you really had to come back to it?
It's funny because, when you ask what is creativity or whatever, I think it's so innate in children. Like every child is the most creative person I've ever encountered because of the way they view the world. So for me, I remember being a really creative child. I remember having a very active imagination and, imaginary friends and building worlds that nobody else can see, or building worlds that everybody can see because you make it out of pillows and whatever. And so I do think I was always someone who wanted to dream and dream big. And so I was lucky enough to have a childhood where I got to explore various aspects of myself. I was in dance classes. I did have music classes. I played some sports, but not really. And I think having that life growing up where I got to explore different paths helped fuel my brain in what was possible and how you can explore and how you can follow different. I'm saying all of these words that are really just, the buzzwords of creativity, but how you can dream and blah, 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 blah. But I'm sorry.
No apology necessary. This is great.
So I do think I've always been somebody who liked to, and I will come back to it, say the word play a lot, because that is my favorite way to describe things, especially in business now. I play, and that's always been something. If it's not fun and if it's not looking for something new, then it's not worth it. And so I think that's always been part of who I am. And growing up, so through high school, I took drama classes, and I was in choir and whatever. I'm saying all of these. Gosh, I told you I'm going to talk in circles. And I always knew I wanted a creative career. but I wasn't necessarily sure what that would be. And after graduating high school, I went to a liberal arts school and kind of was taking every class under the sun. And I was a little lost because I wasn't sure, it didn't seem like the smart choice to go become an actor or whatever. So I was going to go make up my own major and take a bunch of classes and not know what I was going to do.
Perfect.
And eventually I came around to the fact that no, acting was really, really what I wanted to do. And I really wanted to be good at it. And I really wanted to train. So I ended up transferring, and by transferring, I mean starting over, my bachelor's degree, and I went to CalArts and I studied acting, and that changed my life because art school isn't for everybody, because it is a lot of it's a lot of money for something that is in theory in everybody. But it really changed my life because it gave me permission to think in ways I didn't think before, and use my body and my imagination in ways I wasn't giving myself permission to before I went to school. And so I think there was a chunk of my life where I was not connected to my creative self as much. And art school brought me back to that and gave me the permission to be this person.
Nice. I love it. Having also gone to acting school, I understand that. I get that world. I totally do. And I mean, it sounds like, being a creative person, it's not all like sunshine and ponies. There are challenges that we face and navigate. How do you face creative challenges in your life?
Okay. How do I face creative challenges? It depends on the challenge. Like you said, it's not all sunshine and ponies. I will say, as someone, I think this is pretty common. I won't speak for you, obviously, but people who are artists at heart, I think, are tapped into the many feelings that people feel. So I would say one of my biggest challenges is I am often very anxious or very sad. I feel all of the negative emotions just as much as I feel all of the positive emotions. And, for me, I'm just sort of thinking this out right now, but I've always also thought of that as a blessing, because it does make me feel like I can connect to the things that I'm making on a deeper level. When you're feeling the pain of the story you're telling, or when you're feeling the I'm gonna make myself cry because I don't know when this is coming out, but like this week, there's a lot of really terrible things going on in the world. And I, as everybody does and should, feel them all very, very deeply. And to me, the way through that is to turn my attention toward creating something positive or creating something that matters. And I think I'm actually answering your question backwards, because it's not what I can do for the creative challenges, but it's more like what can creativity do for the challenges that I face. And I don't know. I think it just comes down to I love the challenges as much as I hate them. That didn't answer anything.
It totally did. It was totally fine. I mean, I think the experience of what it is to face a creative challenge, maybe it is the challenge. How do we use creativity to face challenges in our life? That may have been a better question. And how you do, and how, that experience of being an incredibly empathic human can be exhausting and rewarding and incredibly important to a creative process and a creative journey. And we still have to take care of ourselves, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that. You mean sleep.
Sleep, self-care, all of the good things, mindfulness. Yeah, that experience. So it's definitely, but I think hearing that kind of reframe of that question of how do I use creativity to navigate the challenges, I think is such a beautiful experience. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And I mean, it sounds like so many things inspire you, from emotions and positive, negative, all of them. But what are some of the other things, that you pull inspiration from?
What don't you pull inspiration from is really the question. But like, I, in a micro way, the past couple of years when we were making Solar, right? This was an incredibly stressful experience for me. Like we said, we put our whole heart and souls into this show, and it got to be very unhealthy for a chunk of time there, where I was, not sleeping very well, waking up at 5 a.m. And rather than doing anything, because there's a pandemic, so you can't really release steam anywhere, I was working from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. and then falling asleep and then not sleeping well and getting up and doing it all the next day, and just like staying on the couch working or something. And it became really, really toxic for a hot minute. And so I started to, in order to get out of that, I started going on walks in the morning when I would get up really early, and I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to start working before 8 a.m. I'm going to make sure that I take time for myself. And I started walking more. And there was at some point I was doing like 8 miles a morning. And, it was maybe a little bit not healthy also, because I needed to balance, but the being out in the world and like breathing air and listening to music that has nothing to do with the project that I'm working on, and taking time to explore something outside of whatever it is that I'm so hyper focused on has always been the easiest thing to let go, the easiest thing to forget to do, but also the most effective way to fuel creativity and to find inspiration, because you have to divert your focus or expand your vision or whatever it is. So in a much shorter way of answering that, music, walking, going and doing something else, not being so tunnel vision.
Yeah. I mean, such a great reminder for everyone, regardless of whether you are in the creative arts, doesn't matter the career. How are you finding balance in your life and making sure that there is balance? But I think you speak to a really important piece of, because creative artists are so passionate about what they're doing, it can be so easy to fall into, my life and my work are the same. And how do I separate it and be okay with separating it? Because I think that's the other piece that as creative artists we really struggle with. Like, I have to do all of it all the time, and recognizing, oh, my best today is different than my best yesterday and will be different than my best tomorrow. And that's okay. And that, I think, is a really hard reality to accept for creative artists.
Yeah, it is. But it's a good reminder. Fully rounded human beings who have a life rather than are stuck will always have a more fulfilling creative life, and also just, I don't know, you'll be happier. I was so much happier when I started.
And our creativity will last longer. I think that's the piece too. I'm curious, did you notice that going on walks and taking more time for yourself, that you had more charged creativity to come back to?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Talking about sustaining, that is 100% having something to fill the tank instead of going to bed empty and waking up empty and then trying to drive on empty. You got to fill it at some point so that you have something to keep you going.
Right. Yes. Agreed. Yes, absolutely. When you think of, I mean, I'm sure crossing paths with many people who feel very creative, people who don't feel creative, how would you encourage someone to find creativity in their life who may not feel creative?
First and foremost, and this is like, I think really important, everybody's creative. It's so weird. And this is, this is not my story to tell, but I will tell it anyway. A friend of mine was on a dating app, and she is not in an entertainment industry in any way, shape, or form. She is in a more of a scientific world. And she matched with someone who was a filmmaker, and I can't remember what the initial line was, but she basically said like, "Oh no, I'm not in the entertainment industry." And he said, "Oh, well, are you even creative or whatever?"
Oh, heartbreaking right off the bat.
And she got really really upset, and we talked about it for a long time, because she was like, "I don't even know what that, like, what am I supposed to say to that? Like, how, like, I don't know, no, but yes." And it's like, yeah, of course she is. Like, she has the most diverse, wonderful life, and you know, she plants gardens and has this incredible fashion and designs her apartment, and like all of these amazing things that are totally creative endeavors. They're just not music, art, like they're not making the music or the dance or the movie, but like everybody's creative. You have a vision, and you have a taste, and you have, I don't know. I mean, unless you're the one person out there who's sitting in a completely empty room and you hate everything. I don't know. Maybe there's someone out there who despises creativity and doesn't want to be. And if you're that person, I'm sorry, and you don't have to be creative. Everybody else, I think, has some way of viewing the world, and that's their version of creativity. So if the question was, how do you feed that? Like, do whatever fuels you, whatever makes you think and dream.
Nice. Yeah. What makes you dream? What fuels your dreams?
Yeah.
I love it. That's great. What a great way to, like, you know, just chip away at what an experience is to be creative. What do you dream about? What do you want to try? Those new things that you've never had.
What lights your fire, you know?
Yes, absolutely. I love it. Well, it's been such a treat to chat with you. I just have one last question.
Yeah.
What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
I am when I create, and I mean this in all aspects, whether it be acting or my solar, my audio drama, directing, whatever, I'm a very instinctual creator. So, you know, for solar, for the directing, we would have our actors come in one at a time into the booth. And when they were performing, I would, in order to, you know, do the scene rather than have them do line by line, I would perform all of the roles opposite them. So it was great. It was, oh my God, what a dream, because I got to just act all day. But like, I would know that we were getting there, not because I like saw it and I could calculate what we were doing, but because I felt it.
Yeah.
So in my body, it's if something moves me, or like, you know, and again, we're going back to that, I'm a very emotional person. So whether it be something in the pit of my stomach, or I, you know, get all teary-eyed, or I get goosebumps, or I get nauseous, I don't know. If something moves me physically and I feel a change in my body, like that's what creativity feels like.
I love that. And I love the amount of awareness you have of those changes and of that experience of creativity, because not everyone does. And so, like, what a gift.
I only do because I went to art school and they taught me to be aware.
So benefits of going to art school and all of the other things too. But thank you so much. It's been such a treat to chat with you.
You
And
too.
if people want to learn more about your audio dramas or get in touch with you, how could they go about doing that?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm more active on Instagram at the Jenny Curtis. Or you can find Solar at Solar the Podcast. I will just anybody listening. And if you're a creative soul, please go listen to this show. It's on all podcasting platforms. And it's the greatest creative endeavor of my life. And so if you want to listen to it and talk about it, hit me up at Jenny Curtis, the Jenny Curtis, and we can chat about Solar the Podcast.
Awesome.
Also, anything else, like just Google me. I don't know. It's probably out there.
I'll put all of that in the show notes so people can easily find you. And thank you again for taking the time to chat with me. It's been such a treat. Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.